Hey guys, Julian here. Today you can see I'm in my new studio. It's still a bit messy and unkempt. I've got like foam to put up. I need to cover the walls in the back. But that's not what today's about. Today is about I'm going to be showing you how to make a full modern tech house track in the style of Sink or Swim, Repopulate Mars, John Summit, sort of that style that's most popular on Beatport right now, and show you how you can hopefully get yourself a Beatport Top 10 track. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, the template, everything for the track and from this video is available right in the top of the description on my Bandcamp. This is a really great way to support me if you guys enjoyed these videos. I don't make a whole lot of stuff for YouTube, but with these sample packs and templates and stuff like this, I'm able to keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. And yeah, thank you so much guys, and let's dive in. Alright, so we've got the full track here in front of us, and as I said in the title, I used a bit of this hardware over here. I've got some new bits of gear over here that I'm going to be talking about in the video. But yeah, so we're at 125 BPM, and the first thing up here is probably going to be the low end groove, which sounds like this. So you can see the kick and the bass here, you know, they're pretty strong together. They have a nice relationship going on. And this is the foundation of the track. You know, all this other stuff, you know, using like a cool synth over here or some cool effects, or like, you know, making some vocal sample or anything like that, none of that stuff matters if you can't get these two things to work together. You have to get your kick and your bass working properly. Now, the way you do that is through a few different things. One is through having a really good kick and having a really good bass. It's also through making sure they're in tune. So like the low end of the kick, the needs to be hitting the same note as whatever the root note of your bass line is. And then also, it's just going to come from leveling them out. You know, it's not that hard. It's just getting it at the right volume and sitting there and listening to reference tracks and hearing how they have their set. But yeah, like, so you can hear the bass line's really simple here. It's actually just two notes. Right, and it's like this very, you know, nice eighth note sort of pattern that grooves well with the kick. And now for the sound here, you can see I'm using wavetable. So we've got the sub oscillator as well as a square wave and a saw wave just going into a low pass. So it's taking out the mid range and highs, and we're getting just the, like, you know, nice crunchy mids there, or crunchy fat lows there. And yeah, then you can see we just have this big sidechain to the kick a little bit, and then the last effect on here is just a high pass filter which comes in like in the breaks. But yeah, so you can see like with this bass, you know, you have a really fat sound. You don't need to do all that extra saturation and drum bussing and stuff. And I used to do that a bit on here. But at the end of the day, like, you know, these oscillators are making the sound, not the effects. So if you just get those sounding good, get them at the right level, you're not going to need all that extra stuff. And then for the kick, so yeah, this is one of my kicks. This is based on a bit of, it's like a 909 kick. You can hear that in the low end. And then the mids and the highs are a bit punchy as well. But it's mostly just about that really fat, powerful, deep low end. And again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying with the bass. You know, it's like when you have that fat 909 style kick like this, like, you don't need all that extra saturation if you just turn it up. Just let that like big, powerful low end shine, and it'll work. And then this has actually the exact same high pass filter as the bass. You can see it's got the same automations, except this one's just a little bit different because we have it off in the beginning, and then it goes on in the end. But yeah, so that is the foundation to the track. You got to start with those. And then we go up next to the drums, which I have all of the drums in this group here. I'll say it pretty much starts with these. So once you move up from your kick and your bass, then I would go and make like these, sort of like your main hi-hat and your clap. And then you're letting that you can see like when we get this alone, it's still a really solid, fat groove there. And that's what you need. You need to make sure that this works without any of the other stuff. So for this one, it starts with the hi-hat. So I've got these 3 hi-hats layered together. You can hear they all do different things, but then when we put them together, it's very full sounding. So we've got that. And then the clap is 2 layers, so we have this one. You see, I just added that little hit there. And then we have this Lin clap, which just adds a bit of like. You can hear it. Yeah, so that's just making the whole thing a bit fatter. You can see it's got a bit of reverb, a bit of an EQ on both of those. So yeah, so again, these main drums are just going to come through layering. It's not like way drum bussing your claps or your hi-hats or anything. Just layering a few good sounds together to make something really sick. And then the next thing from there is probably going to be like these little background hi-hats. Which when I play this with one. Yeah, you can hear what's going on there. There's actually a lot of detail here. And this is going to kind of fill up the high end in the track. So it's a bunch of different layers. So it starts with this, just like a live shaker. And you can see there's a shaker on top of that, adding in some extra hits. And then we have this hi-hat that's just like that on all the 16th notes. But then underneath all of those, there's also these. Which, yeah, you can hear where those fit in. So those are just these 3 different hi-hats that I had. Made a little pattern with them here. And then you can see, yeah, we just have a phaser actually on there. And this is a good way to add some movement in the background. You know, it's a little subtle thing, but this way your hi-hats aren't as like steadily just the same thing the whole way through. But instead, now they have some more movement. So then we've got that. And then the next thing there will probably be this ride. So this is like a ride loop that I made. You know, it's not just like a ride, but it's taking 2 of these and kind of creating a bit of a pattern with them where I have one going just on the quarter notes and then one on the upbeats. You can see they each have a little bit of auto pan as well to make them kind of bounce off the kick. But yeah, by putting these 2 together, it creates kind of a more interesting loop, I think. Rather than just taking one and just going tss, 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 over and over. That's kind of boring. This is a bit more like full and exciting sounding. And yeah, and then on the groove here, I just have actually my ultimate stereo widening rack, which is essentially just widening the highs a little bit. Because you typically want your ride to be a bit wider. Then I have a high pass filter on that. You can see I have another auto pan to make them bounce off the kick all at once. And then these 2 here, this frequency shifter and this utility, are just in the break here. You can see, I'll show this in a new lane. So you can see, yeah, we just have, it's pitching down, and then the volume is also going down. So pretty simple, it just makes it disappear in there. And then we have sort of like the background percussion, which we have about 5 layers here. Technically 4, which sound like this. So you can hear there's a lot of groove going on in the background there. So the first one is just going to be these bongos. And this one as well, which are very simple. So there's a lot of groove happening there. But then underneath it, this is where I was saying it's technically 4 layers, because these 2 chops are kind of like the same. So we have that happening, so something very steady with these very like crazy bouncing around percussions. And then just a little snare at the end for the show. And yeah, so that's all the percussion right there. And then on the group of those drums, the only effect I have is just a little bit of, or just this EQ. And all this is doing is it's just to make it filter down in the break. So I'll show you what I mean. Because there's this one part where all the drums filter at the same time. See, it's just a really easy way to do that. And even over here. See, it's an easy way to make those build back up there. In that build up. And yeah, so then those are kind of like the main things that go throughout the track. Everything under here you can see kind of comes in and out. So the first thing here is going to be this little shifting pad. And so the way that I made this is actually using the microfreak right here. It was like this sound that I was playing with, and on there's this oscillator, which is essentially like a chord. It's almost like if you imagine like a wavetable synth, but like it's flipping through different chord shapes. And so essentially what I did is I was just twisting the knob where it's like flipping through a few different chords, and it sounded really cool. So I just recorded myself playing that, just holding down one note. It was just F, and that's where you hear that. It's just me tweaking that little chord knob. I think it was going from like a minor chord to a fifth to like a seventh or something. And then I just recorded that and looped it over and over. And this is kind of a nice way that you can combine hardware into this sort of process. You know, obviously we're not going to do the whole thing with hardware. Like I think if you try to get like a 909 drum machine and just do these drums live and try to have this bass line going, you're not really going to get this same like fullness to it. But with sounds like this, you can just have the synth. And rather than sit there and tweak like Serum or Operator or something for an hour to get a sound, just play around with these synths and play around with like kind of that more organic method of making music where you're turning knobs and stuff is happening. And you know, something like this can be a lot more fun that way, rather than sitting there and trying to make this in the actual computer. Plus, the best part about this is that it's giving you something that you're not expecting, right? I wouldn't have thought to make this in the computer. I wouldn't have even had the idea. But I started tweaking different knobs, and then you find the idea. And that is the value of the hardware, I think. So I've got that just going through a high pass, bit of reverb. I have this washout, which is basically just a high pass and a reverb being automated at the same time. We have an auto pen to make it bounce off in the kick. And then finally just a low pass filter, which just brings it in and makes it disappear. And it also does that over here too. Then we have this little growl here, which also came from the microfreak. And this was just playing around with different modulation on there because this synth, the microfreak, has this very expressive keyboard where you're kind of like you can sort of modulate things using the keyboard, basically like with aftertouch and kind of like how hard you're pushing and stuff. And so essentially this was a patch where I had that, like it was being modulated. Like I think like the filter frequency and maybe like the wavetable was being modulated with how hard you're pressing the keys. And then I just sat there and just, I think the pitch was also being modulated with that too. But you can actually find this recording and listen to it and you'll see. See, it's a little bit crazier, but then you take the good moments. And then that's just going through a short reverb, a bit of distortion to kind of crunch it up a bit more, a high pass filter, and then we're just side chaining it to the kick. And yeah, that just happens. The other thing about this is it's an arrangement thing, because this is obviously a very like ear grabbing and attention grabbing sound. So we don't have that in any part of the track except for here. And by saving that for here, this way, it makes it a lot more exciting there versus kind of giving that away earlier in the track. Then we have the vocal.
You've been chasing every girl inside. You've been cheating and telling me lies.
So the main thing about this one is basically it was this longer acapella.
You've been
Like it had like a whole part.
me lies. You've
So I didn't use that. But over here, I just took another part of it and kind of made it like two halves. And then there's that vocal, but then it's also got variation with this where I have like that, like kind of this nice chopped loop. There's also like this over here. So you can hear we're just taking the little fragments of that vocal, but it all comes from this. And then just like, you want to have the vocal in a lot of the track, but you don't want to just have the same vocal over and over. So just chopping it a little bit differently each time it comes in. Like this is a different chop from this over here, which is a different chop from this. By doing that, this way it's going to keep it exciting and make it feel a lot more fresh throughout the track. And that's just going through a bit of echo. I actually put it through some drum bus, which I think is really good for giving the vocal some character. I high passed it, and then this low pass filter, which just is automated in this beginning here. Then we have this little operator donk. And that's just like a little sound that's just coming in. Basically, like down here, these are all the little sounds. Well, this is one group of them, I guess. All these little sounds that just come in like the drops right here. But you can see by having these, like, it's kind of like we have the stuff that's playing all the way through up here, like the drums and the bass and the kick. And then there's these little sounds that just pop in and out. Like I'll solo all of them, see here. Right, like all that stuff is happening. That's what's keeping it exciting. It's the contrast between this stuff and then the drums and the kick and the bass that's essentially making this track work. So this is the first element of that, and all it is, it's just this pretty simple FM sine wave sound with operator, you can see. They're all at different octaves, a little bit of a low pass, and some of the shaper, reverb, drum bass, high pass, and then it's just like a little just kind of like, almost like punctuation in the beat. That's how you want to think about this. This is like a comma or a period if you were writing a sentence. Just having a little burp. It's simple, but it makes a big difference in the track. Then we have this sub 37 growl. So this I made with my new Moog sub 37 over here. And basically, these are just two patches that I made, and then I layered them together. And what I did here is I actually made this like little mini clip where it was like this, like it was just gliding down, like it was, I think it was F and E. And I did like this, like it was this really fast glide, like it just goes like that. But then I set the glide time to be really long on the synth, so you're getting this song like it's going down in pitch like that. But that's what it is. I just sent that MIDI through the sub 37 and then send the audio back into Ableton through the Focusrite over here. So yeah, it might sound a little bit confusing. I'll probably make a video on that at some point. But basically, it's just these two sounds layered together. So it's this one, which is just some simple saw wave stuff. I think I had like, so it was like a saw wave, and then, or two saw waves, a bunch of unison, or a bunch of detune. I had like the filter, I was like opening and closing it. But then there was also an LFO modulating the actual waveforms of the oscillators. So it's essentially like, kind of like warping through that. And then it's just a bit of reverb, EQ8. You can see to kind of shape it a little. Auto pan to make it bounce off the kick, and then a high pass. And then we're layering that with this one, which, as you can hear on its own, doesn't really sound that fat. But this was actually a pretty similar sound. I'm pretty sure it was like the same patch, but this just had like, there's like a drive on the filter. I turned that up. I turned the resonance up a lot on the filter. And then I really tweaked the filter so you get that like really disgusting, almost like an acid, like 303 type of sound. But it's just that really nice filter on the sub 37 creating that. And yeah, so then when you put that with this, it's really fat because they're each kind of doing one thing. And then this is just going through this amp here. I have an auto pan, high pass, and then I have my ultimate stereo widening rack so that this one can be wide, and this helps make these two layers work together. And yeah, then we just have like this little ARP. So I made this with the Micro Freak. You can see I reversed it in some parts. That's kind of the nice thing about working with audio is you can just do little reverses and stuff and kind of make it more lively. We have like this one, which was like some kind of weird modulation thing. On the Micro Freak, I have this little stab. So this is just 2 notes, just F and F sharp. Same 2 notes as the bass line. And then, yeah, we just have like 2 saw waves here. Excuse me, a saw wave and a square wave. Low pass filter, you know, a bit of an envelope on that, so we're getting that plucky thing. You can see there's a bunch of automation on the filter as well. I have the noise unison. We have a bit of echo, which you can see automates up, like in these parts, to make this kind of disappear there. A bit of reverb, high pass filter. And then it's just being sidechained to the kick. And then we have like these 2 layers are kind of cool. It's a clap and then this little stab kind of bouncing off of each other. And you can hear it really helps if these 2 overlap on some notes, because then it's going to kind of make it feel like they're fitting together into one thing. And yeah, then we have kind of some more of the effects. We have like, you know, a build snare. You can see with this we automate not just the volume, but also a high pass filter and even the decay on the snare to make it kind of get bigger. And then this one underneath it is actually the same snare sample, but just plays a few fills. These are some interesting sounds. So what these are these 2 different risers actually made with the Sub 37. There's that one, and then there's also... So it's these 2 different ones. You can see sometimes it's one of them, and then sometimes it's both of them. But the way I made these is it's literally just taking the Sub 37 filter. It's like I was saying, it has a really good filter with a really good resonance. And then when you turn the resonance all the way up, you kind of get like a pitch from the filter. So then I'm just holding down one long note. I'm pretty sure it was F with like some saw waves. And then it's just taking the frequency and just slowly turning it up. And because that resonance is so high and because it's got the distortion on it from the drive on the filter, you get like like the pitch starts rising. And then it's really great because now if you have this like really, really long breakdown here, like I'm pretty sure this is like 32 bars, there's no riser in a sample pack that's 32 bars. Unless there's one, you know, designed to have really long risers. Like usually the ones I've seen only have like 8-bar risers. So when you're using the synth yourself, it's a really cool way to just make it fit that whole time, because obviously this needs to be really long. But now we have like this nice background there, you know, like you might not be hearing that much, but it's adding a lot if I turn that off. So it's kind of missing something. So you really want to have like that really long riser in the breakdown there where it just goes all the way through, or else, like I think if you don't, this is like that thing that's gonna really tie the whole break together. So yeah, it just kind of really makes that work there. And then we just have some different, like, you know, sweeps and stuff like that. These are just some different effects. These are all, I believe, from my Definitive Track Effects sample packs as well. You know, some of them are just like, we've got like cool stuff though too, like this. Then we have, this is another sound with the Sub 37. It's just like this little bass plug here. You can see there's some chopping on that. I have like this little wavetable bass stab. These are like the little like kind of tiny background of sound. As you can hear, they make a big difference. Just having that little groove there. We have like this thing. Just like this messy operator FM sound I was playing around with. Yeah, just this little tiny stuff. Little vocal sample. We have like some noise. But that's that last thing that if it's all working together, the whole track is going to feel really tight and cohesive. And it's important not to miss these. And yeah, then we just have like a crash. This is a white noise sweep that I made using operator, so it's just white noise, bandpass filter. And I made that so I can make it as long as I need it to be in some spots. And then the only other one is just this little sweep down here, which is another one of mine. Yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, literally every single thing that you saw in this video is available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. Not only does this really help support me, but you guys are gonna get a great template that you can use to literally make as many tracks as you want. You can make hundreds of tracks off of this. You know, it's just taking this template and you have everything in one place that you can really work with and learn from, and it all sounds professional and full, so you know it's going to be solid. Plus, you get a great structure here. You know, you can just follow the structure, but it's all available at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Not only do you get a great template, but this also really helps keep me going so that I can keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. You know, I'm not making a whole lot just off of YouTube, but with these templates and different things like this, I can keep going. So definitely go grab that if you enjoyed these videos. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.